Along with having an intriguing plot, Parasite touches on many profound and serious themes. The story revolves around Shinichi Izumi, 17, who gets infected by an unearthly parasite. These are monsters who ruthlessly butcher and feed on humans. He soon realizes that if he wishes to survive, he must learn to coexist with the monster, no matter how much he hates it. As the story progresses, their relationship develops and Shinichi soon realizes he isn't alone in all of this. The trouble of parasites arises when an extraterrestrial entity lands on Earth and starts exploiting humans as hosts. The story opens with a couple staring at each other lovingly, under the gorgeous moonlit sky. Things accelerate quickly when one of them suddenly develops a head of a monster and sinks its fangs into the other. Blood splatters across the floor and the corpse collapses into a horrific heap. It serves as the beginning of a death streak called the Mincemeat Murders by the media. Shinichi Izumi, a high school student who is scared of bugs and awkward in front of girls, gets caught in the thick of it all. His life is flipped upside down when he encounters one of these parasites directly. However, this entity only manages to seize control of his right hand. The next day, Shinichi spots a girl sprinting after a ball and almost gets hit by a fast automobile. He pulls a move out of pure instincts and saves her by stopping the car with his bare right hand. After noticing an eyeball appear in his right hand, Shinichi hurries home. Soon he realizes that he can't kill Migi, the creature that now lives in his right hand, and must learn to cooperate with him. As one would expect, Shinichi now has superhuman strength and improved reflexes, and he isn't afraid of showing it off to his crush, Murano, at school. Turns out, there are other boys who fawn over Murano too, and Shinichi's new confidence has started getting on their nerves. One bully tries beating up Shinichi, but Migi intervenes. They run into another parasite, but the latter easily takes him down. What begins as a harsh conflict of values quickly gets much more emotional as Migi and Shinichi strive to figure out what's going on with them. Unfortunately, this comes to a halt when a new half-parasite, half-human teacher named Ryoko Tamiya arrives at school. It's evident that she has considerably more power than Migi, but she also happens to be pregnant with a human kid. Shinichi's meeting with Tamiya reveals that parasites cannot reproduce, even in human bodies. Unexpectedly, the man who fathers Tamiya's child launches an attack inside Shinichi's school, forcing the students to evacuate. In a direct confrontation with this parasite, Shinichi and Migi learn how perfect and unique their combined strength is when the latter is on defense and the former is on the offensive. However, eventually, Tamiya kills the parasite herself and threatens to kill Shinichi one day. Tamiya is forced to quit her job as a teacher when rumors about her child's father start spreading. She talks with Shinichi about the reality that all animals have tendencies, one of which is to consume humans. She also claims that she will use the baby for experimental purposes, and later that day she also kills her host's mother. By the end, Shinichi's parents leave for a trip to the countryside despite him being against it. There is an important scene where his mother recalls the memory of protecting him as a kid from getting scalded by boiling water, and she received burns in the process. She also mentions noticing changes in Shinichi's personality. When Migi tells Shinichi that there are the least chances of parasite attacks in the countryside, he agrees with his family to leave for the countryside. But clearly, all the secrets he has to keep are weighing down on him. Shinichi is targeted on his way to school by a group of troublemakers, their leader Mitsuo, and his girlfriend Kana, who seems to have some type of ability to detect parasites. Mitsuo gets jealous when Kana gets close to Shinichi, so he attempts to go for Maruno, which angers Shinichi even more. Before the latter could end Mitsuo's tale once and for all, Kamiju, Nagai, and other kids from Shinichi's school stand up to Mitsuo's gang. Maruno accompanies Shinichi home but refuses to remain. Although he makes it back home safely, his world crumbles as soon as he enters. He is attacked by a parasite that murdered his mother and took over her body. This parasite had been wandering the roadway looking for a female victim when it came across Shinichi's parents. It swiftly beheads his mother's body and relocates to her body, with his father as a witness. His father calls him and speaks incoherently about creatures after he receives a wound and falls from the cliffside into the water. Shinichi now regrets his decision to keep Migi hidden from his parents. While he refuses to accept his mother's death, the parasite quickly spears him through the heart and leaves. Migi immediately moves into the wound to serve as Shinichi's heart until the wounded organ recovers. Shinichi awakens that night to find his pierced chest has healed. Something has changed inside him and he no longer needs glasses. Investigators at the hospital convince his father that he hallucinated his memories of the parasite assault. Despite Shinichi's profound grief, he is unable to cry when he meets his father in the hospital. Also, Migi reveals that now he requires 4 hours of sleep every day as a result of healing Shinichi's heart. He now also has another weakness, which is that unlike previously, he can't sense other parasites in the vicinity whenever he is asleep anymore, which is bound to become trouble for Shinichi. The episode ends with them encountering yet another parasite. They encounter Mamoru Yuta on the seashore, whose jaw bears a parasite. He, like Shinichi, has a separate brain. They both pledge to work together to defeat the parasites. Their alliance works and they successfully eliminate the parasite that murdered Shinichi's mother. Migi sleeps the entire fight but had transformed into a blade in order to improve Shinichi's chances of survival. It is revealed that during the process of repairing Shinishi's heart, certain portions of Migi fused with Shinishi's, making him even more powerful than before, but this is bound to have repercussions for his psychological state. At school, Kana ignores her boyfriend Mitsuo in order to pursue Shinichi. Jealous Mitsuo confronts Shinichi, but the latter effortlessly defends himself. He returns home to discover that his depressed father is having a drinking problem. He talks with Migi about his own psychological issues. As Migi continues to assist Shinichi and they both become one, Shinichi gradually loses the qualities that made him such a shy and weak character in the beginning. Soon it becomes apparent that Shinichi is becoming unrecognizable compared to the person he was in the first episode. Even Murano notices this and calls him out. His new personality becomes even more apparent the next morning when he comes across an injured dog on the road, and to Murano's horror, he throws it out when it dies in his hands. Meanwhile, Ryoko Tamiya has changed her name to Temura and has requested a parasite named Hideo Shimada to pretend to be a transfer student at Shinishi's school. Migi encounters Shimada at school, who claims to exist on a diet comparable to that of regular people, and states that he and Temura are searching for ways for his species to thrive without cannibalizing humans. Kana runs into Shimada after feeling Shinishi's presence. Later on, Shinichi cautions her not to follow her weird telepathy ability. At the end of the episode, the transfer student is seen killing and eating a teenager, revealing that everything he told Shinichi and Migi was all a lie. Shinishi's personality changes frighten Murano away. Migi tells him that this is for the best since the symptoms are only a result of his greater mental strength. To make matters worse, Shinishi's father breaks down as he is upset by his inability to go outside as long as parasites roam about. Meanwhile, Yuko follows Shimada when she sees him quickly heal himself after going through a serious injury to his head. She watches him change his face during the pursuit. Yuko becomes convinced that he is a parasite and foolishly sets up a trap for him at school. In order to get rid of Yuko and maintain his cover at the school, Shimada comes out in his true form. Migi alerts Shinichi about Shimada's murderous intent. Yuko splatters the parasite with poisonous chemicals and nearly escapes. Shimada, unable to keep a human face, loses control and goes on a killing spree around the school grounds. Shinichi evacuates the other students following Migi's advice, but he is unable to find Murano's class. After recovering from his severe emotional reaction to viewing multiple decapitated classmates, he eventually finds Murano but isn't able to save those around her. He carries her safely outside and then deals with Shimada, piercing his heart by throwing a huge rock with all his power, from a range that is outside Shimada's sensing ability. Murano, although confused, thanks him for saving her. During a government conference, a method of identifying people from parasites is disclosed, which is that if a hair is plucked from a parasite's head, it undergoes short spasms. To add to Shinishi's problems, people have started greeting one another by plucking off a strand of each other's hair. Kana dreams of Shinichi arriving as a knight in shining armor and rescuing her. Despite knowing Shinishi's relationship with Murano, she meets with him again and is desperate to become closer to him. He tells her once again to avoid anyone with whom she feels a psychic attraction, as it will only end her up in trouble. Murano and Shinichi go out on a date and she tells him that he has changed since he left town to see his father in the hospital. However, when he sees a kid being rude to his mother, he has a strong emotional reaction. Even after kissing Shinichi, Murano worries he isn't who he claims to be, which frustrates Shinichi. Meanwhile, a parasite fights and slaughters armed Yakuza members in order to test his powers. Shinichi subsequently discovers that the parasites are assembling and running for mayor with dangerous motives. Ignoring Migi's warning, Shinichi chooses to tell Kana about parasites and Migi's existence. Kana is skeptical at first and claims to be able to tell apart Shinichi from other parasites. The following day, Migi receives a faint signal from Kana that is comparable to that released by parasites, indicating that she can become a target for parasites. Shinichi cancels his date with Murano to meet with Kana, who intends to prove her power to Shinichi. She follows her intuition, but instead of Shinichi, she encounters a bloodthirsty parasite. Migi detects the parasite as well, so they set out to save her. Kana is overjoyed to see Shinichi come to her rescue and attempts to run toward him. However, the parasite's blade pierces Kana's heart, and she collapses at Shinichi's feet. The latter is enraged and he disposes of the parasite in an epic fight. At Kana's funeral, her ex-boyfriend attacks Shinichi, accusing him of failing to protect Kana. Meanwhile, Shinichi wonders if he is still human because he is unable to mourn Kana's death. Shinichi is still grieving Kana's loss, but he finds comfort in Murano's presence. It is revealed that parasites have distributed feeding areas to improve their species' chances of survival. Meanwhile, Temura recruits Shiru Kiramori, a private detective, to constantly monitor Shinichi. Although her baby has been born, she is still indifferent about it. She sends a bunch of criminals after Shinichi, and Kiramori films the battle. After dealing with the thugs, he meets up with Murano, but the latter is disturbed by how calm Shinichi is despite Kana's death. Shinichi visits the site where Kana died to let out his emotions, but runs into Kiramori and obtains his camera. Shinichi gets unnerved at the thought of being just another lab rat. The episode concludes with him intending to tell Murano his secret, but Migi threatens to murder her if that happens. Tamura advises Kuromori to stop his investigation into Shinichi, but he refuses. Meanwhile, Shinichi joins forces with Yuta once more to track down Kuromori. Shinichi reveals everything to Kuromori, but Migi advises him not to go any further or Tamura will finish him. At the same time, Tamura attends a lecture on the selfish gene, which explains parental love as a selfish desire for the propagation of one's own DNA. She takes her infant to meet with Shinichi and tells him that parasites are seeking methods to cohabit with humans. She deduces that a parasite murdered Shinichi's mother, but he is fed up with everything and threatens to kill her. Tamura almost uses her baby as a shield from the attack. A fortune teller later reads Shinichi's palm and reveals that he has an emptiness in his heart, advising him to seek closure with the person who is the cause behind it. Shinichi smiles creepily and states that he has already taken care of it. Miki, a parasite hired by Ryoko Tamura, brings a young lady to a specific feeding place and murders and consumes her along with one of Kuromori's colleagues, prompting the investigator to seek assistance from Shinichi. Although Shinichi kills another parasite that is about to feed, he fails to save the young woman. Kuromori, appalled by what he has seen, gets rid of the evidence he had gathered against Shinichi. Meanwhile, Shinichi has caught the eyes of many new enemies. Hirakawa intends to murder him while Tamura wishes to dissect him. Miki is dispatched to complete the mission. The next day, Migi detects 3 parasites approaching Shinichi. Miki appears when Migi is sleeping, and Shinichi runs away to the countryside. Migi realizes at the end of the episode that all 3 parasites are within Miki's host. While Miki attacks Shinichi, Hirakawa's group tries to assassinate Kuromori by attacking his workplace. They eventually murder his wife and child in a gruesome scene. Meanwhile, Migi and Shinichi confront Miki, who at first has a hard time getting used to the combination of their moves. They decapitate him, but the other parasite, Garu, takes over the host. Migi and Shinichi manage to throw Garu off for the time being, realizing that they cannot win against him. Shinichi advised Kuromori to seek help from a private investigator, Harami, who is currently looking into the parasite case. Kuromori then flees police detention and starts stalking Tamura to avenge his family. Shinichi learns from the news that the parasites are targeting Kuromori. He wants to protect his own family, so he phones his father and advises him to leave town. He is shown to have had reoccurring nightmares in which he communicates with a humanoid-like skeleton of Migi. Meanwhile, Tamura and her group starts falling out. She gets annoyed when her partners underestimate human nature, whereas others start viewing her as a threat. The episode concludes with them attacking Tamura. While the Parasites gang attack Tamura, she shows interest in the idea that parasites are displaying characteristics of individualism, which is rare. It doesn't take her long to murder the 3 of them and comes home to discover that Kuromori has taken her baby. He leaves behind a letter telling her to meet him at a specific location and time. Other investigators later enter her apartment and discover the letter as well. Tamura visits Izumi's house and tries to understand his story and his past relationship with his parents. This somewhat triggers her motherly love, and she contacts Shinichi to meet her at the same location Kuromori has mentioned. Murano runs into Tamura on her way out of Shinichi's residence, and the woman tells her that Shinichi will be back shortly. She follows Shinichi and Tamura to their meeting point. Kuromori is there with Tamura's son, and he believes she is incapable of being a caring mother. She mistakenly pierces Kuromori through the heart, thinking he is ready to murder her kid. The investigators locate the dying Kuromori, who sends them to Tamura. The episode concludes with Shinichi confronting Tamura. Tamura reveals that parasites can exist without cannibalizing humans, hypothesizing that the 2 species are related. When the investigators arrive, they start shooting at Tamura, who does not respond and instead decides to defend her baby. She limps towards Shinichi, pleading with him to listen to her point of view. While Shinichi was slowly losing his humanity, Tamura was experiencing something entirely opposite. She transforms into his mother's appearance when he starts to back away. He stops at the familiar sight of his mother. When she gets too close to him, the investigators stop firing. She puts her kid in Shinichi's care because she wants her child to live a normal human life. She dies after recalling the pleasurable experience of mimicking human laughter in the past. Shinichi's grief and sorrow catch up with him as he watches Tamura's sacrifice. All the emotions he had bottled up till now explode and he is finally able to cry. Murano meets Shinichi and he gets transported to a testing center, where Uragami, an individual who can sense parasites, is forced to determine if a selected number of individuals are parasites themselves or simply have the parasite sensing ability. The episode concludes with Uragami sensing something in Shinichi. Despite the lack of proof against Shinichi, the police are convinced that he is hiding something. However, Uragami lies to the investigators by stating that Shinichi is just an ordinary man. He realizes that since he himself is a ruthless criminal, he has a lot of similarities with parasites and so has nothing against them. Meanwhile, as more members of their kind are slaughtered, Hirakawa begins to suspect something. The police and military have teamed together to assault and kill all parasites at City Hall. Uragami and Shinichi are brought in to detect parasites among a massive evacuees. The military launches their operation, but unfortunately, some humans get caught in the crossfire. Hell breaks loose when the military decides to use large weapons to take down the parasites. Gato goes berserk and walks into a room with military men and gives them a couple of minutes to open fire at him. But there was never any hope for these men as he uses every single bullet shot at his body and fires them back at the same velocity. Not with guns, just from his body. And this results in all 5 of them dying. Mayor Hirakawa is assassinated, but turns out he was just a human. Meanwhile, Gato turns his attention to Shinichi, who stays paranoid about the former murdering him for a while, until he meets Murano at the park. They make love and the episode ends with Shinichi's renewed reason to live. The next day, Shinichi and Migi confront Gato during a last-ditch attempt to defeat him. However, Shinichi is forced to flee after Migi appears to have died. He is subsequently taken in by a compassionate old woman named Mitsuo. However, the old woman's village soon succumbs to Gato's hunger, so Shinichi decides to confront Gato one last time. He manages to injure Gato with a rusted pipe after several failed efforts to kill him. Migi is shown to have been alive inside Gato and relocates to Shinichi's body, saving his life before Gato delivered a possibly fatal blow. Unexpectedly, Gato's parasites revolt against him, and he explodes apart as a result of Shinichi poisoning him earlier. Shinichi watches him battle to remain alive and reflects on how mercy for others is a human quality. He finally resolves to protect his family and friends even if it means losing his humanity, and therefore kills Gato. Some time has passed and parasites from all over the world begin to blend into human civilization. Migi appears to Shinichi in a dream and informs him that he will be sleeping forever. 1 year later, as Shinichi and Murano are spending time together, the latter is kidnapped by Uragami, who climbs to the top of a skyscraper and begins confronting Shinichi about his humanity. When Uragami attempts to hurl Murano from the building, Shinichi is able to save her, surprisingly from Migi's help, and then incapacitates him. Shinichi smiles as they lie on the ground, staring up towards the sky. This was the story of an underdog who literally evolved with the help of his newfound power and the friendship of Migi.